Thank you. Yeah, I had been Twitter stalking Notwestminster for quite some time because, yes, my distaste for Westminster is widely known, I'm afraid. So yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's been quite exciting for me to be among so many kind of like-minded people. So for the last 7 months or so, I've been working for the West Midlands Combined Authority, not the YMCA, which everyone tries to say every time they say that. But I've been asked to help turn its commitment to inclusive growth in reality. So this lightning talk on how citizens and their values can shape local economies is drawn from that journey that we've been on so far. And it's kind of got to be a journey that we make with citizens, and it's got to be a journey where we learn from other places who do this better than us, because if citizens aren't on board, it's definitely not inclusive growth. And I would say that there is a genuine commitment to doing economics differently and doing it inclusively. So it's quite a fashionable term at the moment. There are quite a few definitions for inclusive growth out there, which is really helpful when you're trying to build cross-party agreement because, it's a very pleasant sounding term. It's quite hard to disagree, particularly when you've all got different definitions for it. But at the moment when you're trying to actually change something, it's really not helpful to be vague. So the first thing we did is come up with a definition. So it's quite long, so please bear with me. It's a more deliberate and socially purposeful model of economic growth, measured not only by how fast or aggressive it is, but also by how well it is created and shared across the whole population and place, and by the social and environmental outcomes it realises for our people. So yeah, pretty catchy, I think you'll agree. That'll make a great hashtag. But thankfully I've come up with a shorter way to say it, and in short, an inclusive economy, growing or otherwise, is one that reflects and even enhances the values and identities of its people. And this is something that goes quite a lot beyond whether you literally work within a particular sector in the economy, and I think it can work in both good and bad ways. So in a previous role, I got to spend some time over in Cork with some people who worked in the environmental sector in various ways, and we were discussing our city's climate change challenges, so me from Birmingham, them from Cork. I was kind of on a rant saying that Birmingham, being so strong in the automotive sector, has basically locked it into car addiction, and all of the issues associated with that. We've designed our place around cars. Cars signify status, they're linked to heritage, and people feel really proud about it. So a modal shift to getting people onto feet, onto bikes, onto mass transit. It's not simply about building the stuff to enable to do that, it's really got to be a kind of a cultural piece that you do. Now in Cork, and I think in Republic of Ireland more broadly, their problem's a bit different. It's cattle farming. A third of their greenhouse gas emissions come from cattle farming, but less than 2% of their GDP. And cattle farmers have been offered some really good investment to change their business model over to one of forestry, or even if they don't want to take that massive step into agroforestry, which is like cows and trees. But they still kind of resist that because it's part of their cultural identity. And this really kind of flies in the face of everything we're told about traditional economics, which is that people will always make the decision which is financially advantageous to them and will always act in their own interests. And this is kind of demonstrably not the case 100% of the time. But, it's what people do, and I don't think we should pretend otherwise. And therefore I think it's incumbent upon us in the Combined Authority and local councils and other places to just create the conditions for this to work in a good way. And I think we can use our public services, our community action and our social enterprises to get us there. And I think we sometimes forget because, we're so over-regulated, so controlled by horrible Westminster and Whitehall. I've grown to hate Whitehall even more now that I've become an officer instead of a councillor, I've got to say. It's like DCMS and my number one kind of hated department. It's like, get something to do. Sorry, I'll just... You're using your own time, this is cool. I'm so sorry. But I think we express quite a lot of our social values through our public services, and I think over the years of austerity, where we've really come to see what we stand to lose, that's been really clear. So in Birmingham, for example, most of our local schools are probably going to lose their school crossing patrols this year, unless the schools can find it in their own budgets to pay for it themselves, and I'm sure this is kind of a familiar picture from everywhere, really. But the outrage about this cut isn't just about the families of the affected children, it's not about the staff at the school, it actually just stretches across places, it unites people. So that service is basically local citizens saying that, in our place, children are safe, childhood is sacred, and its removal represents a challenge to those values. It's outrageous if you just walked up to them and went, do you hate children? That is how strongly people feel about it. It's kind of a reminder as well that as much as I'm quite idealistic about these things, keeping reminding myself that austerity has really curtailed our ability to kind of shape some of this stuff through public services. But I think we have to take what we can from that, and that's what truly matters to the people in our places. So some of you might have read work by Mariana Mazzucato. This is the bit where I try and sound really clever for reading books about things. But she's the professor in the economics of innovation and public value at UCL. She wrote 2 really excellent books called The Entrepreneurial State and The Value of Everything. And she does a really good piece of work on mission-led economies. And she's very centrally focused, so she is definitely focused on the ability of national governments to have mission-led economies. But I think this is something that can be led by localities and can be led by regions. So we could make safe children an economic mission. We could make healthy ageing an economic mission. We can make conserving resources an economic mission. Regulate positively, create space and incentives for innovation, for activity, and then watch it go. I'd probably use I don't know if any of you remember the Green Deal, not the Green New Deal, which is very exciting talk in America, but our failed retrofitting policy here. But I think that was quite an interesting example of economy shaping through values. So that was warm, comfortable, efficient homes as an economic mission. And now we're in a sort of space where a number of regions across England are exploring what they could do about that if energy company obligation funding was devolved. I know we've got somebody from Cornwall in here who I met before, and they're one of the earliest attempters at this. They've had their eco-funding devolved, and it's now able to prioritise greatest need instead of the random stuff that government would like them to. But this creates demand for businesses that specialise in complex retrofitting. It creates space for community energy cooperatives. And, in a time when our school children are kind of going on strike to say we are kind of running out of road to make sure that we've got a planet to be alive on, I think it's really incumbent on us to listen and respond from the public sector. But I think it's probably quite clear that I don't think any of this will be realised without a bit of a fight. It's kind of difficult to change when we are incentivised to focus on sectors at the expense of the outcomes of economic activity. And you've kind of got a situation where people who are in power now have kind of benefited from this rather imperfect system, and convincing them that they might want to change that is quite a hard thing to do. In all places we will measure strength through growth, through jobs and through trade. And I think you can have good things in all 3 of those while people still live in poverty and in health. So in the West Midlands we are technically the fastest growing region outside of London and the South East. And all of our leadership will soon be off to MIPIM, the kind of awful real estate symposium in Cannes, to kind of, to tell investors why we are the best place to invest in. But at the same time that we've had that growth, jobs, trade, we've also got, in the last 9 years, twice as many homeless children. So I kind of think that if we want to talk about inclusive economy and inclusive growth, we kind of have to have a shared sense of what good looks, because I don't think those homeless children are particularly thinking, oh great, what a great economy this is. And I think institutions that are capable of that sort of nuance when we talk about economic strength is quite important. Try and wrap this up now. So I've been a bit disappointed by how much actual devolution we've had. There was an awful point in Combined Authority Board when we had to ask the Secretary of State for permission to amend our own penalty fares on the metro. And I was just sat there in absolute fury, just like, what? Why do you want that power? That's so ridiculous. But I do think that there is potential in combined authorities, and certainly potential in local authorities, to turn citizen values into strong places. So we've had these developments of local industrial strategies, which have been a bit imperfect, but have nonetheless been able to assert citizen values and place values into central government industrial policy. At the Combined Authority, our response has been to do a few things. We've built a few tools, so we've got an inclusive growth framework which will try and capture some of those broader social and environmental outcomes that we expect economic activity to create. We're also trying to create a set of tools to try and make it easy for everyone to understand what it is. So I'm writing 4 inclusive growth tests, and once they're properly written down, I'll happily share those with you. And we're also building an investment toolkit so that people creating strategy, policy and investment proposals have a clearer sense of the power of their own resources. So just finally, really, I just think we are in the best possible place to do this. When we make bad decisions, we know we've made bad decisions, and when we make good decisions, we know we make good decisions, and our citizens certainly know that. So I think this is a really interesting opportunity to do things differently, and it's been really useful to me to hear some of the stuff we've been doing today, because it's given me lots to take back home and to apply in practice. So thank you very much.